So in order to do that, we decided to undertake a small study to see if we could identify whether and how PFC as a learning environment is actually contributing to important learning outcomes. First thing we did to do this is we identified this learning space framework. This is the basis for the framework that we undertook the study, in line with what we had, with the philosophy of PFC. And in so doing, we also adopted and contextualized an existing measurement for measuring integrative and active learning spaces by Young and Huang, 2015. And so we gave this adapted survey to our students at PFC in the faculty. It was a 40-item online survey, and the objective of the study was to begin to explore the impact of the PFC learning space on students' learning outcomes, specifically their psychosocial learning outcomes. What we wanted to do is we wanted to look at how the physical context of the learning space, encompassed here by these 5 dimensions, how it impacted on student learning. And so the first dimension showing refers to students' ability to use the space to share their knowledge and to present their knowledge. Manageable refers to the students' ability to manipulate the learning environment according to their own needs, to what extent and the ease of flexibility they can do that. Accessing has to do with students' ability to access the digital tools. With what level of ease can they access the internet, for example, to undertake their learning activities. Comfort refers to how comfortable the learning setting is. I think from the video, you can see just how comfortable PFC is. Often I feel like it's a home away from home, almost like a living room, if you will. And then lastly, enhancement has to do with the extent to which students felt that the learning environment enhanced their teaching, the teaching and learning process. The outcomes that we wanted to measure are three main outcomes. One is involvement. To what extent does the PFC learning experience increase student involvement and engagement in learning? A very important outcome for today's students because, as we know, many students experience very low engagement in traditional classrooms. Second is pedagogical skills. To what extent are students able to undertake problem-based learning and learning on their own independently? Another very important outcome. And the last one, cooperation. To what degree can students collaborate and work together in teams in the learning environment? Another very important outcome. Dr. Yasmin showed the Industrial Revolution 4.0 before. These outcomes are all very much related to IR 4.0. So in terms of our initial findings, the descriptive findings from the study, as you can see, we have a sample of 116 students. And as you can see from the mean scores, all 8 dimensions scored very highly. Out of a scale of 1 to 6, all were above 5, some were above 5.5. So the initial descriptive findings were very positive in terms of students' perceptions of all these different dimensions of the learning environment. Next, we looked at correlations between our physical context predictors and the outcomes that I just described. As you can see, the bivariate correlations were all very high, ranging from 0.43 all the way up to 0.76. But what we really wanted to see was the regression results. So we ran multiple regressions for all 3 of the learning outcomes. The first one on involvement. We wanted to see what elements in that physical setting actually contributed to students' involvement, sense of involvement. And in terms of involvement, we identified 3 main predictors. One was showing, again, the ability of students to share their knowledge and information in the learning space. Accessibility to the internet and digital resources, as well as enhancement. They felt that the feeling of the setting enhancing the learning experience was a major contributor to their sense of involvement and engagement in the setting. For pedagogical skills, on the second outcome, again, 3 predictors proved to be significant. Again, accessibility. So if anybody goes into PFC, you'll notice that the internet connection is very fast. This is something that students view very positively in terms of an active learning environment, very important. Comfort level, how comfortable is the space? We often don't think of a classroom needing to be comfortable for students to learn. Here it shows that it is. And then again, enhancement, the sense that they felt that their learning experience was enhanced. This helped them to develop these pedagogical skills. And then the final regression on the outcome of cooperation. Two predictors, manageability or manageable. To what extent can the students manipulate and arrange the classroom according to their learning needs? Okay, so if you're working in teams or in groups, that's a very important aspect of a classroom setting. You have to be able to manipulate the tools in the classroom in order to facilitate your learning. And then again, accessibility. So for all three outcomes, the accessibility of the tools in the learning space is very, very important. And it's important to also mention that in conducting these regression analyses, we controlled for three core demographic variables. One was gender. So regardless as to whether male or female, did not play a role or did not contribute to the outcomes. Year of study, we had students from different years of study, but that was not significant either as a predictor. Nor was frequency of experience learning in the PFC. So whether you had just used it for 30 minutes or you used it for 30 hours, it didn't have any effect on the outcomes. So what we have concluded from this small study, it is the beginning of putting an empirical basis for showing that the PFC learning space has a positive association with these critical student learning outcomes. So, active learning is, from what we have gathered from our study, active learning is influenced by the learning space. So, the question to all of you is, are you ready to redesign your learning space? Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Okey, terima kasih pembentangan yang sangat menarik. Maybe I need to speak in English probably. Ataupun Dr. Rani boleh cakap Melayu?